Did you know that Jesus, or rather Paul in this case, tells you to call out the bad people, call out the negative in the world, but it's probably not in the way you think. Of course, it's done with respect, it's done with love, because before this, he prefaces this and he talks about walking in love, which then leads up to him saying, call people out, basically. And I'm talking about Ephesians 5 here, and he starts off this chapter by saying, therefore, be imitators of God as dear children, just like children trying to imitate their parents, is basically what he's saying here. And then you walk in love as Christ has also loved us and given himself for us, because he did everything he did out of love. And then he kind of goes on to talk about doing, living in sin or walking with people who are in sin, kind of abiding in it or being in the sin with them, whatever it might be, that basically saying be careful of who you surround yourself with. And then he goes on to continue at verse 8 and he starts talking about walking in light, because you see, you can't have darkness and light together. If you're in darkness and you get out into the light, well, then you're bringing the light, and that's taking over the darkness. And then he's continuing from those previous verses talking about the sins and walking with sinful people, and then talking about us walking in righteousness, where in verse 10 he says finding out what is acceptable to the Lord. So he's saying, we found out when we became Christians, basically, like what's good from the Lord's standpoint, because that's what we try to emulate. And in verse 11 he says, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. So you see, it's right to do so. It's right to expose the darkness, expose the wrongdoings, whatever it is going on. And this is something that's it might be tough for some people, but it's something that's a little easier to do if you're not sure of what to do in your walk. Start by just exposing darkness, bring it to light. Make a little comment to the person, or just put it out there on social media, make a little post and say, hey, I saw this thing, XYZ. But do it in a respectful manner, right? You don't have to point fingers. You don't have to blame. You don't have to judge, because we don't do that. Only God can judge. But just do it in a respectful way with love. And it shows multiple things here. It brings darkness to light, but it also shows that you're a person of Christ.